You know, the effort to quarantine our faith to our churches and our homes is not just about the cultural and the political issues of today, like abortion or the redefinition of marriage. Ultimately, it is about the gospel, the ability to carry out the Great Commission. Without a vibrant First Amendment and a church that is willing to use it, America's future is bleak. No one is carrying that message with greater urgency than my good friend Dr. Ronnie Floyd, who is a pastor of Cross Church in Arkansas, and he is also the president of the Southern Baptist Convention. Please welcome Dr. Ronnie Floyd. Dr. Floyd, welcome to Free to Believe.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, and it's a joy to be with you today. Think about it with me for a moment. The secularization of America has done so much to disrupt American Christianity. Amen. Initially, it tried to make us become extinct unsuccessfully. And then it attempted to neutralize us. And to some degree, a little successful. And now the attention has turned toward silencing the church. I want us to understand today that that's one thing that we cannot let happen.
Amen.
We must understand that in this day and time when leadership is limited, we do not want to live out what Judges says in 17 verse 6. That what? Whatever the people saw with their own eyes, they thought it was right, and they did. This is not about doing whatever we want. You see, we have to look at it as born-again believers as from a biblical perspective, but also with balance. And today, in my time, I just want to talk to you about the importance of the following subject. What is it? How important is it? Seek the Lord. Amen. Reach the lost. Engage the culture. The Bible tells us all of this in the 4th chapter of the book of Colossians. It says in verse number 2, devote yourselves to prayer, stay alert in it with thanksgiving. At the same time, pray also for us that God may open a door to us for the message to speak the mystery of the Messiah, for which I am in prison, so that I may reveal it as I am required to speak. Act wisely toward outsiders, making the most of the time, for your speech must always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you should answer each person. What's the solution? Seek the Lord. Think about these things with me for a moment. That word devote here is a word that means prevailing. It is a word that means persevering. In other words, we're called upon to prevail in prayer. Here is Paul writing from a prison cell in the midst of his own challenges, and he's telling us we need to devote ourselves to prayer. Whatever is happening today in the American culture, we must seek the Lord. And he said to do so with a watchful eye, not an eye that just ignores what's going on in the world, never thinks about what's going on in the world, never reads the web or the news accounts or whatever it is. Christians cannot be alienated like that and be effective. Right. We can't even pray and live out our faith because God is calling us to even pray and to seek Him with a watchful eye. You see, we do that with thanksgiving regardless of what our circumstances are. And that's where the power of it is. And that's why we've got to keep our eyes on Jesus Christ. I know today that there are churches meeting together, and without question, The number one need in the church is a mighty fresh move of God like the church has never seen before. Amen. I mean, we call that revival, and I just want to say that that is the greatest need. And what you will find is that great prayer always precedes great movements of God. I say it this way: there is no great movement of God that has ever occurred that is not first preceded without the extraordinary prayer of God's people. We need to seek the Lord. The Bible also tells us that we need to reach the lost. You see, churches just can't be living within themselves seeking the Lord, but we at the same time be reaching the lost. In fact, the apostle said that we need to pray for the open door. What is the open door for? The open door is so that you might be able to share the gospel. We know that according to the book of Acts, that this is exactly what happened in Paul's life. God used him while he was even in the prison to be able to be effective for the cause of Jesus Christ. You see, America, it's acting the way it's supposed to act because much of America does not know the living reality of knowing Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, of having life change, sin forgiven, and the hope of heaven when we die. The joy of knowing the Lord is with us all of the time. This is why we must be diligent to share the gospel, to preach the gospel, to advance the gospel. This is why churches must have a vision to penetrate the lostness in their own community. When you think about America, I mean, let me tell you something. America is filled with many people that don't know the Lord. And churches need to have a vision that will reach their town and their city with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Amen. Now think about the balance here. We need to be committed to devoting ourselves to the Lord, seeking the Lord, but we also need to be in this posture of reaching the lost. And while we're doing those things, we engage the culture. You see, when we're actively seeking the Lord and we're out here with the real people trying to give them the good news of the gospel, we then have the capacity to engage the culture. It's amazing that in this passage, the apostle who wanted the open door for the gospel, he told us to watch out for the way we say things. He told us that we need to have our speech, what? Seasoned. He tells us that we need to act wisely toward outsiders. We need to be gracious. We need to be kind. We need to be committed to that with people. I want to call upon us today. We need to work on that a lot in the church. I've tried my best over the course of years to grow in that, and I'm still growing in it. I want to be effective, and I can't be effective if my tone is not accurate. You see, in today's world, whether it's right or wrong, tone precedes truth. People will not hear the truth if our tone is not right. And I want to challenge you today to really be careful to do just what he said, and that is to watch the tone of the way we say things. Yes, people need to hear truth, but if they don't hear us, then it doesn't matter. We want to be effective. Therefore, we must engage the culture. And guess what? When you effectively engage the culture, the end result is you influence the culture. And if we really want to influence people and influence the direction of the American society, we need the hope of the gospel going out through our lives and our churches. We need to be diligently on our face before the Lord, seeking the Lord, so that we can effectively influence the direction of a nation that we love. So many times as I've traveled across the country, I'm asked this common question: Pastor Floyd, do you have any hope for America? They are somewhat surprised when I answer, because I give a resounding yes. Because I do have hope. You say, well, how do you have hope in the midst of this? Let me tell you why I have hope. Because I choose to believe God. What are you believing?
Amen.
I choose to believe God can do anything, anytime, anywhere with anyone. And I choose to believe that my God can do more in a moment than you can do in a lifetime. Seek the Lord. Reach the lost. Engage the culture.
As always, Dr. Floyd, great job. Let me ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
So, seeking the Lord, reaching the lost, engaging the culture. We almost live, I would say, in New Testament times. As a church out there gathered today, listening to that message, should they expect when they do that the red carpet is going to be rolled out for them in their community?
No, they won't get the red carpet, but what you will get is a little bit of resistance sometime in some places and sometimes a lot. But it comes back to what I said a moment ago, Tony. We need to watch our tone. You know, if you will love people, they have a tendency to hear. And if we will talk to people, we won't talk about people as much.
Right.
And that's what the problem is in America. We need to start talking to each other.
And sometimes it takes persistence, because
very
the
much.
first time you may have some obstacles, they may not hear, but we just need to be persistent in our communities and in our engagement in a loving, humble way, but nonetheless a bold and courageous way in which we do not apologize for the truth. But you were with us a year ago this past November in Houston, Texas, where pastors there, and this is, I think, somewhat symbolic of the hostility we see today, where the mayor subpoenaed the sermons of pastors there in Houston, Texas. Now that tells me a couple things. It tells me, the one, that politicians are just out of touch, because you don't have to subpoena a pastor to get his sermons.
I would gladly give any politician my sermons.
Well, the point is that we're going to face some resistance. We can't internalize it. We can't become angry or embittered.
That's right.
We have to continue to stand and speak the truth.
That's right.
Amen.
You know, the way I say it is this. We need to hold the truth of God in one hand and the love of God in the other. And when we do that, something connects.
Yeah.
People have a tendency to hear what we say.
Well, Dr. Floyd, I appreciate you and your work in leading the Southern Baptist Convention and going beyond that and reaching other spiritual leaders of our nation, calling them to seek the Lord, to reach the lost, and engage our culture. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, friend. Blessings.
All right.